What's good, everybody? April 22nd. We're on time this evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 o'clock Central. We have a great show for you guys this evening. Got a special guest, and this is a hot topic that I've been asked to do several times, and I'm finally getting around to it. And in order to bring forth this topic, I'll call her a special guest because, of course, we had to have a woman represented here to represent the the voice of womanhood, to make things fair and equal. So this evening we have Keisha with us on the show. Say hi to my loyal friend base on Facebook.
Hello.
I hope everybody's doing well in this very interesting situation that we have going on here. I figured I'd do have a discussion this evening to sort of pull us away from the topic of the town or of the nation right now, just to kind of give us a little contrast. And so that's what we're trying to do this evening. And so let's get started. This evening we're going to be talking about several things, all of which is going to be centered around men and women, relationships. There's a full list of things we're going to talk about this evening, and this is just an open dialogue. Feel free to chime in. We definitely want to have an opportunity for you to call in with your opinions, your thoughts on the topics this evening. And I will leave a link in the description to this video for those who chime in late. You can watch the entire thing re-syndicated on my YouTube channel, Mario Think Tank, on YouTube. So, Keisha, how you feeling? How's the week been for you?
It's been a week, and it's only Wednesday.
Hump day. What would normally be hump day, but a lot of us, it's vacation day.
It's day whatever it is right now.
Yeah, and I was looking at a statistic yesterday, was saying that basically out of the 290 million working Americans, right now 11% of them are not working. So there's a lot of people sort of wanting to hurry up and wait for all of this stuff to sort of settle on us to get back to work and get back to whatever normal is going to be for the near future. So, but just to jump right in, welcome. This is Mario's Think Tank, episode 2. I had a show about 2 weeks ago. If you want to check it out, it's on Mario's Think Tank on YouTube. If you search it, it'll come right up. This evening, we're having a conversation about men and women. I guess we wanted to start this conversation off with male and female privilege. Okay. You know, we sat down and we thought about topics that are either controversial or hot topics pursuant to men and women, relationships, interacting, traditions. And so we just basically came up with a list of topics, and we're going to go through them. We definitely need your participation.
We didn't talk through any of these, so everything is coming off the muscle.
Organic, completely organic. So male privilege. So is it a thing? Is it real? Do men have privilege that women don't? Do we have advantages that women don't? Your opinions, your thoughts, Keisha, what are you thinking in this regard?
Absolutely. Like James Brown. James Brown is my favorite artist of all time. And what did he say?
It's a man's world. So what are these advantages, these privileges that we have that?
I think there is a little bit of a racial divide when it comes to the male privilege thing, because I think amongst the black community, I don't think the gap is that vast between men and women, but nonetheless, I think that there are just some arenas that men are much more respected in and much more welcomed in, and women have a harder time navigating those areas.
Now, as far as the job market, would you say from your own personal experience that there has been one advantage over the other as far as is getting into the job market or moving up in a company or just sort of the way the hierarchy is set up for businesses?
So this is based on my personal observation.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like there's more of a male privilege in, more of the technical spaces,
okay,
or the more manual spaces like construction or manufacturing, transportation, engineering, things like that. Definitely skewed toward men. And they've had to basically develop, anytime you have to develop a program to get another demographic of people in, then you can see who's welcome there, you know.
Fair enough.
So I feel in those particular areas, it's definitely male dominated, and women, law, all that stuff, women have a hard time, I think, navigating in those spaces and being respected and climbing in those areas. But then you switch over to the softer careers that are more administrative and education and things like that, and it's like significantly female skewed. So
no, and I definitely will say that despite male privilege, men in a male privileged environment realize at a point that women excel in certain areas that we just don't, and or we just don't want to, one or the other. And so, when you talk about like secretary or anything organizational, just detail-oriented work, I've noticed in my own personal situation that it seems to be, I don't know if it's more female attraction that drives women into these positions or female funneling by a man-driven system, but there are definitely, even like with law, have you noticed with law that a lot of time your most deadly state prosecution are women? I've noticed that.
You know why?
Why?
Details.
Yeah, and you guys are technicians when it comes to details. You don't miss anything.
No stone left unturned.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever talk to a woman that talks about her investigating in her own relationship, it is virtually impossible when you're dealing with women to try to pull one over on you until you get to a certain point. But as far as male privilege, I see it. A lot of men would argue that they don't see it, so it doesn't exist. But you see, fellas, if we want to be honest with ourselves, we do see it. And I do on the flip side. Everything, everything is in detail. Yeah, absolutely, Mary. But I definitely see it for myself. I see that in certain situations, it is favoring, men traditionally speaking. On the flip side, outside of the work environment, are there any other male privileges that you say exist?
Yes.
It seems like in your mind you're trying to dance around.
I think
you don't have to be. This ain't CNN, so you don't have to be politically.
I'm not trying to be politically correct, but I feel that every time I think of an instance where I could say, "Oh, men have privilege in this area," then I could think of a way that I can like weasel through it as a woman. So I'm like,
you're trying to find something that's like privilege exclusive.
Yeah, honestly, one thing that comes to mind is like being safe in public, like that feeling of safety.
Okay.
But see, that's the thing that black men would say, well, I don't feel safe walking the streets at night either. You know what I mean?
Well, there's levels of safety too.
Right. But I'm saying, like, for instance, if you're a male, you're out somewhere, which no one's out anywhere right now, but under normal circumstances, and somebody is bothering you and you don't want to deal with them, you don't want them talking to you, then you just be gone and they're gone. When you're a woman, you have to kind of, oh no, I'm married, oh I have a boyfriend, whether that's true or not, because leave me alone and no, is not like full stop when you're a woman. It's like there has to be some qualifier. Like, I will only take your no if I am 100% convinced that you are attached to another male. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I guess I can agree with that. Mainly, and I'm saying I guess because I'm not a woman, but from the perspective of men, a lot of us have ego complexes. A lot of us.
That's why it's not safe for us. Because of your ego.
We walk around like, obviously she wants me. You see how she smiled at me? She said hi back to me. Obviously that means she wants me. Like, I've been walking with fellas, like in college, we walk with a bunch of dudes, and all of us will walk by and wave to the girl, and she'll say hi to all of us. There's always that one dude in the group. Yeah, you see how she looked at me? Yeah, she wants me. Dude, she said hi to all of us. Why is every time someone acknowledges you somehow in your mind twist that into being something else? And I guess I can say that's fair because as a guy, it is very rare that we get hit on unless there's some indication that you have money or you have some opportunistic bridge that would make it very easy for certain, not all women, but certain women to cross certain bridges. It depends on the character of the woman. So I can agree with that.
And I think also men are viewed as being more credible. Like, I think we all know that men blow a lot of smoke, like a lot. And
what do you mean? Wait. Pause. Because hold on. There's a difference between us blowing more smoke and us blowing smoke and not being good at getting away with it.
Y'all are unskilled.
We're sloppy
at blowing the smoke that you blow.
Okay, so maybe we both blow smoke. Y'all are just better at masking it.
I still think y'all do it more. I do, because I think y'all have the ego thing. I think y'all have the ego.
So you think we're overconfident, and therefore we just, in our minds we're like, there's no way they know what I'm really doing.
Just making up stuff. Don't have to be true. Doesn't have to be accurate. Doesn't have to be realistic. Y'all just say stuff, and your boys are like, yeah, that's right. And it's like, women, we don't get to just say stuff and no one and have it fly.
Because I'm not going to let that fly. See, I'm not going to let that fly.
See?
Women are infamous. And the thing is, Bill Burr said it in a comedy special. I can't say exactly what he said because this is a child-friendly show. But Bill Burr made a good point. He said that women say things all the time and go unchecked because most men have intentions. Like, if a man has an intention with a woman, he will let her say the most outlandish thing, and it goes unchecked. It just goes completely unchecked. We don't have that privilege. We don't. Well, maybe we do. I don't know.
You do.
All right, so I'll let you have that one. Men lie more. Women are better liars.
Agreed.
Well, see, we wouldn't know if women lie the same because they get away with them because they're better liars.
Her point.
Men are caught more. I wouldn't say they lie more. They're caught more.
As I said, you're unskilled. You're unskilled.
Anything else on the male privilege that you can think of?
That's all I can think of off the top. If y'all can think of stuff, please leave it in a comment because I'm drawing blanks. And I want to make a strong case here. Okay,
all right, fair enough. Well, we'll jump to female privilege for a second. And I know I'm about to get attacked. Because the idea that a lot of people have is if one group has a privilege, then there's no privilege on the other side. And I disagree with that. I think that you have unique privilege in every group to some degree, whether it's equally beneficial or not.
Oh, before we move on. Hi, Melanie. My name's Keisha.
All right. So, female privilege. And mind you, this is not scripted. We did write down topics, but we're definitely winging this. And ladies and fellas, if you can help us out here, if you have ideas and thoughts, definitely add to the mix. We will definitely include it on the show. Female privilege. Off the top of my head, I think female privilege, we can say it is contingent upon attraction. It's contingent upon attraction. Because if you have a certain body or a certain look, you have an easier go in life. Everywhere you go, a man's trying to help you, holding the door for you, buying things for you. You're getting off for speeding tickets. You're getting discounts. Now, the flip to that coin is when you're more attractive, you get haggled more. I'll be the first one to tell you. I've seen it. Anybody from Baltimore knows. Anybody from Baltimore knows. A girl walking down the street in East Baltimore City, everywhere you go, you're getting hollered at. So there's that dynamic. So as far as female privilege, I think life can be easier for you. If you're depending on your circumstance, I do believe that if you are blessed enough to partner with the right individual, you're protected. You can kind of sit back and just focus on what you enjoy doing. I'll give you an example. The other day, just before all this foolishness happened, I was given with Lyft. I was given these two young white women from Frisco, Texas, which is a wealthy area, rides from the bar to their house, and they were just venting to me about how hard it is to be a housewife and sit home all day, bending over at the waist to put in DVDs for their kids, and I'm just sitting there like, really? And then, oh my God, the agony. I have to be with my son and daughter all day long and go places, and I don't get to go out. I don't get to work. And I'm thinking to myself like, really? And to me, those sort of constructs can be viewed as privileges, depending on the situation. If you're dealing with a deadbeat significant other and I've seen certain situations where the men playing video games, the girl's going to work all day and then she's coming home and he's still playing video games. I mean, it's disturbing to me, but you have those situations out there. As far as other female privilege, this is a touchy one. This is a very touchy one, because you and I have had a conversation. Don't give me that look. You and I have had a conversation about it being a rape culture. And you do have that sort of thing that happens, and that's a very sensitive topic. It happens a lot in pretty much every culture, every community, where you have women that are taken advantage of, young age, older age. You just have that happening. But the flip side of that coin, and I think it is a disadvantage depending on wherever you are in the scenario. You'll have women who are people don't believe them, because the idea is, oh, okay, well, if she's lying, then she could put a man behind bars and he may not have done anything. But on the flip side, you do have men that get locked up who haven't done anything, because the system, in certain facets, the system, it's not really fair one way or the other. It can be used in extremes on one side or the other. You could definitely have a woman who has something happen to her, and basically there's no recourse for the person who did it. On the flip side, you can have a man who hasn't done anything and the system is leveraged. And you do have men and women that abuse the system on both sides. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think with that situation, it's just 50-50. I know that a lot of women, if we're talking about assault, a lot of women just don't report at all because, I can't say for other communities, but I know in our community there's a lot of protecting of perpetrators. And so I feel like I think it's actually a little bit more male privilege, because okay. I would venture to say, and the ladies can chime in, I would venture to say there are a lot more women who are assaulted and their perpetrators are free to come to the family reunion and they have to see them all the time, and versus the amount of false accusations that men are in prison for.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. It's unfortunate that it happens on both sides of the street. There was one man I read in an article maybe a year or so ago that he was locked up for 25 years because no, you're fine. The ex-wife or ex-girlfriend basically told her daughter to report to the police that this man had done something to his own daughter, just to be spiteful. This man got locked up. He didn't do anything. Then the girl grew up and came out and said, look, my mom put me up to this, being spiteful. And I'm going to tell you, Fellas, there's nothing deadlier than a vengeful, spiteful woman. You gotta be very careful who you partner with, because if you get on the wrong side of the street with the wrong one, they're cold, calculated, and relentless.
Stone cold. I will say, I actually think that's the best example of female privilege.
Oh yeah,
and that's when it comes to domestic violence.
That's a good one.
These men, it's not funny, but these men be out here getting stabbed, hit by cars, shot at, beat up, eyes clawed out, spit on, kicked, called the cops on, and everybody is like, oh, well, it's a woman, you can't hit her. You gotta treat a woman this way. You're stronger, so you can't do this. And people tend to sympathize with the woman or people think that there's, I don't know, something inherently, weak about a man being like, I'm being abused. But it's like, if these women were reporting a fraction of some of the things that a lot of women get away with that men were doing to them, it's like, oh my gosh, oh, what can we do? He's so abusive. He's so that. There's just so much sympathy that's naturally given to women in those situations, and men don't get that.
And we can't be human. We can't have emotion. It's like, and it's a dynamic thing. Like with men, we're brought up in certain cultures that, boy, shake it off. You don't cry. You don't have emotions. You don't show any weakness. It's just this facade. Really, the facade is teaching us it's developing us to be sociopaths, low key. Like, you can't be emotional. You're just supposed to bear the weight of anything. And the dynamic is different for men, because men have a social standard that if you cross the line, if one man crosses the line with another man, he knows he's going to get blasted in the face. Y'all don't have any equivalent. Y'all don't have the equivalent that if I cross this line, I'm going to get punched in my face. Y'all don't have that. And so, as far as woman privilege, you guys literally, in a lot of cases, not saying a lot of you do it, I've seen a lot of women do this depending on the region and the culture and the way that women are brought up. But in certain regions where it's popular, women basically have the mentality, I'm invincible. You can't do anything to me. I can do whatever I want. There's no accountability, because no matter what I do, if you retaliate, it's your fault.
I agree. I think we've all probably seen it with our own eyes. Like, say, you're at your restaurant, at your bar, whatever, when life is normal. And you see the women, they throwing drinks in the dude's face, they spitting on them, they kicking them, they rocking his jaw. And it's just like, oh, she crazy.
It's cute.
If a guy does that, he going to jail. That day, at least,
Yep. And Bill Burr said, and so there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, we had to scroll down because we realized that I was like, why is nobody responding?
We missed all that.
Female privilege can destroy. And as well as child support, custody. And and that's another thing too. Like, and I'm glad you brought that up, Melanie. Like, the child support system really favors, like, a woman has to be a legit serial killer, drug dealer, drug lord, massacreist if you want to prove that you want to have your child, because the system will, and I understand it, a woman is a natural nurturer. So to a certain degree, I get why the system says, hey, let the woman nurture in her nest. But there's, that argument also is said that men do not contribute to their kids as much as women from outside of a support construct. Because if the idea is that we're supposed to be the support system for our kids, and it is equated to only money, material, then the idea is, all men do is hand their paychecks over to a woman, and there's virtually no contribution that a man can give to his kids outside of money. And I think that's a bad construct. I think men teach their children a counterbalancing set of things to what women teach their children. What are your thoughts on that?
I concur.
Yeah. I mean, and really it depends on your experience and what you've seen coming up. And guys, I'm scrolling as I'm talking here, so bear with me. But
I think someone said something funny.
what?
It's true.
I officially hate Xbox now. Hey, I haven't had Xbox for a year. I sold my Xbox, and my mentality was, you know what? I'm going to take a year to focus on some goals, because I know that once I purchase another Xbox, it's going to shift my attention in other directions. And so, just being realistic and honest with myself. But I love Xbox. So, what did someone say? The world's smallest violin. Gold diggers.
The tears.
Oh yeah.
For the housewives.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's funny.
So there are definitely privileges on both sides of the street. Let's go here with it. Gender roles versus gender strengths. You understand what I mean by that?
I think I do. Explain.
Well, there's this construct out here now that demonizes the idea that why do we have gender roles? It's oppressive to women. And notice how gender roles is only oppressive to women. The argument is never made that it's oppressive across the board.
What if the man wants to be home with his kids?
I'm sorry. House husband? Honey, eat him. Well, let me not do it. I'm not going to do it because I'm going to get attacked by a certain community. But I don't know. Like, I think every team is different. I don't think there's any particular rule that is concrete. Now, the reason I said gender roles versus gender strengths is because I think that the things that we see as gender roles were developed from something that someone recognized thousands of years ago that are gender strengths. And I think that someone said, women seem to be better at this. Men seem to be better at this. Women seem to be better at organization. Men seem to be stronger, so maybe they're better at protection. Maybe we should give them roles that are suited in their strengths. Maybe that wasn't oppressive. Maybe someone just looked at it and said, okay, women are better. They're better at putting homes together. You walk into a house and a woman lives there, you automatically know it because it's put together a certain way. Details. Organization. There's a certain feeling when you walk into an environment and she has put the house together. You guys are better at that. I don't see a lot of, muscly women walking around, hemming up men trying to kick down their front door. I just don't see it. Not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying I don't see it that often. Maybe somebody recognized that and said, rule of average. Most men tend to be stronger than most women. Maybe we should put them in a position, suitability, of being a protector. Thoughts?
I mean, I agree. I think that, so I was talking to a friend, it was years ago, and I've been, in my younger days, I was particularly militant, I guess you could say. And I was, power to the women.
No, you was a 90s. You was an early 90s militant.
I was a bra burner, all that. And then I would have conversations with my male friends and, be like, well, why do I have to teach a man this? And why do I have to tell a man to do that? And why do I have to, why I got to be at home? Like, as if I'm not a homebody to begin with. But you know how it is. Women, you want to make that choice for yourself. You don't want to feel like somebody else is telling you.
I want to feel like I made that choice.
That's right. So, I would be like, why should women have to do this and da-da-da-da? And one of my really good guy friends was like, because y'all are good at it. Like, they were like, we could do a terrible job. Like, we could try to fulfill that role and do a terrible job at it. Or the people who are actually good at it can just do it. So which one is it? And I was like, perspective.
Yeah, like for me, when I hear the counter argument, I call it the Napoleonic argument. And what I mean by Napoleonic argument is, I want to be able to do what he can. And it's like, no one's saying that you can't. But if the idea is to win as a team, why not put the best players in their best positions? Like a lot of the things that are the argument, like I'll give it to you this way. A lot of times women want to have the aspects of malehood or manhood that are attractive. They don't want all of them. They just want the ones that are attractive. You don't want to pay. You want to pay for dinner and wine and dine us. You don't want that. But you want other things that seem like they're attractive. You don't want the accountability that comes with being a guy and having certain things that fall on our shoulders. But you want the fun stuff. And my thing is, we see a prime example of what happens when you don't have the choice and it's a take all or leave it situation. Not to make this a conversation, because we're not going to go deep into this conversation, but look at the transgender community in women's sports. They're blowing out all the records, all the women records. Who's complaining now? Who's complaining now that the argument is, I want to be, just like a man in every way, shape, and fashion, but when the reality of the situation is presented in front of you and you see, okay, you have your own sports and your own leagues with your own records suited for women, and here comes a man pretending to be a woman, which to me, that's really disrespectful to womanhood. Just the idea that I can look like a woman, put on makeup, make my hair look a certain way, and somehow that's attributed to womanhood. And some women are out here like championing this sort of construct, and it's like, dude, or ladies, I'm not going to call you dudes. Do you understand that it's actually a discredit to womanhood? And so what I mean by Napoleonic argument, in order to look at a man and say, well, I want to be able to do that, which no one ever said you couldn't, you'd have to completely omit what makes you valuable and special and set apart as a woman. And along the way, it just seems like someone has convinced women who buy into these constructs that what makes you unique as a woman is weak and lesser and inferior. And that what makes men what men are is better and more valuable. So is it the idea that trying to not being allowed to be a man is the issue? Or the fact that someone has convinced you that being a woman is not as valuable as it actually is? Which one?
That's good. I like that.
I mean, I sit around and think about these things because I see a lot of posts on social media, and you legitimately have women out here who are championing, basically, I call it defeminization. It's one thing to talk about emasculation, where you have someone trying to demonize masculinity to the degree, if I have a firm opinion, if I make a emotionally poised decision, that automatically means I'm a sociopath and I'm insensitive. No.
Toxic masculinity.
Oh, we're gonna go there in a second. That's another. We'll go there. But it's just the notion is silly when you really unpack some of these what you call fake deep sentiments, because they're really just fake deep. They sound deep on the surface, but when you really unpack them, it doesn't really hold any weight. I'm just going to catch up with some of the things that people are saying here. Melanie says, I suck at some of my roles. It's the expectation that sparked the issue.
I think that to address that, I do think that naturally men are better at some things than women are, and I think that women are better at some things than men are. I think when it comes to individual partnerships, that's a conversation about playing up somebody's individual strengths, right? Yeah. Like in my household that I grew up in, my dad is a man's man. Manly man. Like he's a hunting, shooting, fishing, grease monkey. I guess I can't say grease monkey. Yeah, he's like mechanic and all that, but he is the chef of the house. Like my dad is the one who did all the cooking, and that just is what it is. My mom, she cleans, my mom is the numbers person, she keeps all the finances in line and she keeps everything in order. She restores the order. She has the gift of administration. So anything that needs to be, done in an orderly fashion, that needs to be clean, that needs to be organized, that needs to be anything needs to be put on books, bills getting paid, all that stuff. That's what she does. She's the one who does the corporate thing. My dad does the blue collar thing. And it's not about It's not about like, oh, you woman, get in here and fix me my dinner, make me a sandwich. It's not that. Like, my dad fed me my whole life. When I was younger, my dad was the one who got off work early, so he did a lot of the child rearing in my younger days because we naturally spent more time together. He picked me up from school. He did the homework. He made sure dinner was ready. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's individual. Like, what works best for your family? What works best for your situation?
And the strengths of those individuals. Like, for instance, my family's the complete opposite. Inverted. I'll say not the opposite, but inverted. My mom and dad were both business owners. My mom sold her business to pretty much raise me. And she was always there. She was always in the house, keeping the house. And mind you, my mom owned her own business. When I was a baby, I was in my mother's cleaners. Like, she had me in there working, putting little papers on the hangers and all that. I remember doing that at 4. But I remember when she sold her business and she turned to making sure that I was tight with my reading and that sort of thing. And then my dad was the breadwinner. He was the old school 1950s, 60s. I go to a construction job because he owned his own ceramic tile and remodeling. And he would be out 12 to 16 hours a day. He'd come home, and both my parents are OCD, so he would come in the house and they both make sure everything is in its perfect little spot or whatever. And then they would chill. But, he was the numbers cruncher. Not to say my mother couldn't. She could. But he was there and was doing it so she didn't have to. And so I remember, him crunching numbers and sorting through bills and that sort of thing. And my mom would input, but she didn't really have to. And then in my family, across the board with my uncles and my my older brother, the men in our family cook. The women can too. So it's just you take turns. So when it comes to like these gender roles, I think you have gender strengths that are hardwiring constructs, and then I think you have individuals within that gender that tend to have their own individualized strengths on top of that. Some may be stronger than others. Would you agree?
Yeah, and then also I think the way that people are raised plays a large role in it too, because my dad, you reminded me when you said dry cleaner. My dad was like the seamstress of the family too. Yeah. Like, he was always pressing and ironing and sewing and stuff like he did that stuff. My mom, like, most people wouldn't say she wouldn't consider herself domestic, honestly, but first of all, she can cook. She just does not prefer to, and she has someone who loves to do it, so she defers to him. But my mom grew up in a more urban setting, and so she's more of like the city girl. And then my dad grew up in the backwoods. Like, he didn't have running water when he was growing up. So some of that is they had to learn how to do everything. Environmentally specific circumstances. Yeah, so he just happens to know how to do all of that stuff. Yeah. Which if this whole system breaks down, your pops is what I'm looking for. Tell you right now, I'm going to be like, Pops, let me get a fishing rod, give me one of them guns, we're going to go out there and make sure there's food, because when it's said and done, it's the ones that remember how to survive at a very fundamental level that are going to be the ones good if things get really bad. But, all right, so shifting gears to a certain degree, I put down here emasculation and defeminization. And I know that Mary mentioned above, and that's why I held on responding to it. Mary said there's a movement for defeminization, and I believe there's a movement for that as well as emasculation. And I think really the top tier agenda is anti-family. You destroy the family, you reduce the chances. I don't want to say you reduce population. I think that whether a family is broken or together, the sex drive of humanity is well intact. Let's just be honest about it. I think emasculation. There definitely is some spin or some agenda. Let me say this, because I have a certain demographic of my friends who are watching, who support the LGBT community, and that is your right. And I'm the type person that with my children, I have taught them that no matter what walk of life people choose, you treat everyone like a human being, because we all are. Now, people like to operate in extremes, and I don't. I operate in absolutes,
But I don't operate in extremes. And I haven't raised my kids to operate in extremes. I don't pour that sort of rhetoric into them. And so the idea that having a personal stance and standing firm on a standard means that I hate another person because I don't fully accept what they do, that's foolishness as far as I'm concerned. So I teach my kids, hey, treat everyone like they're human beings. Don't act funny towards people because they operate differently than you do. But at the same time, when it's said and done, you're a Santilli kid. You have a standard. You come from a tradition. You come from a way of living. You come from a walk. And it is our goal to maintain our bloodline generationally by operating in a certain facet. Like one time I told somebody recently, this is when I still lived in Baltimore. I was living on St. Paul Street. And anybody from Baltimore knows that the Pride Parade is the street over there by the park on close to 33rd. And so we were driving home on a Saturday or something from Sabbath or whatever we were heading home from. And he just saw this grown man, like 6'4", wearing a dress. And my son looked at me, and I'll tell you exactly, my son looked at me and he had never seen anything like that before. He was like, Dad, what the hell? And he was genuinely taken back, like, what is this? Because he had never seen it before. He was never exposed to that. And so I told him, I was like, son, look, you got people out here that they believe differently, they do different things, they operate differently. That may be good for them. That may be fine for them. But you're a Santilli. We have our own tradition. And so I expect you to treat anybody who operates any way the way that I would expect you to treat anybody. And in this house or outside of this house. However, that doesn't mean you have to personally accept everything that you see. It doesn't. And the idea that I got to accept everything to love someone is foolishness in my opinion. And I ain't going to do it. And so when you link it back to what we're talking about here, oh yeah, there's definitely a movement to try to force. It's one thing to have your way and operate one way. Fine. I'm not going to force my way on people. People ask me what I do or why I operate the way that I do. I'll tell them. But I'm not going to force it. But the moment you go further to try to superimpose it or to in some Napoleonic fashion, oh, well, if you don't accept us, then you're a hate monger. No, I just don't accept the behavior. I can love a person separate from their behavior. We all have some family member or uncle or aunt that's an alcoholic or something. We love our aunt or uncle. Doesn't mean we accept alcoholism just because they do that. No, there's a person and there's behavior, and the two are separate. Just because someone has a behavior that I disagree with doesn't mean I have to dislike the person. What are your thoughts on emasculation from your perspective?
I mean, it's a thing. When was the last time you watched a TV show, movie, whatever, with, I'm going to just say black men in particular, and some homosexual aspect wasn't inserted into it?
Well, if not in season 1, because they got to get you into the show. And I've seen, like, for instance, I watch, what was it? How to Get Away with Murder. I remember I was watching that show when it first came on. That was right around the same time Empire. My Empire. I'll get to him in a second, Terrence Howard. But I hate his voice, by the way. But I remember when How to Get Away with Murder first came on. And like season 1, it has a plot. And I'm a story guy. I do film as well as music. So I'm a...
Is that the show with Viola Davis?
Yeah, it's Viola Davis and a couple other people. But the story progressed over season 1. And, by season 3, they had a scene where she just basically had a random gay encounter. Had nothing, it didn't forward the plot at all. Yeah. It just literally came out of left field. Yeah. And I was like, was it that you just had to? And listen, okay, you want to see that, fine. But in a situation where you have a plot, did you just have to, like, honorable mention, work that into the plot? Huh?
I used to watch, what was the show, Dear White People?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, that show was so good. And it's like, it started off talking about, the black experience at this Ivy League university.
Sure.
And then, the season, I think by season 2, and there was one of the students was gay.
Okay.
And we told his story. We was down with Lionel.
Yeah.
Lionel was gay. Nobody was tripping. Then we got to season 3, and they were like having orgies, and the whole season was about him and all his sexual escapades, and it was like, when did we turn that corner? And it wasn't like, it was done. I mean, it is what it is. There are gay people in this world. So whatever, people want to be represented in the shows that they watch. I understand that. But it was like the purpose of the show shifted from the black experience to like, this episode we're going to do HIV testing. This episode we're going to go on the sex hotline and find Lionel a boyfriend. This episode we're going to show Lionel getting his first oral thing. This episode we're going to show Lionel going to his first sex party. Like, it was just, the whole season was like, revolved around that. And it was like, no one else had a storyline.
The same thing happened with Empire. For those who watch Empire, I got bored with Empire. I'm in the music business, so after season 2, I was done because I'm just like, okay.
I only watched one episode. It was the season 1 finale, and I was like, it's too much.
I want to make sure that my son takes over my empire. Oh man, I need to make sure. I love his voice, but no, like that show had a gay character. The one who ended up lying about that. We're not even going to go into that tonight, but yeah, he, they had a gay character. Okay, fine. Like, let me know what I'm signing up for. Okay, you have a gay character in the show. Cool, whatever. That's whatever. I'm not a homophobe. I can watch a show with a gay character. Cool. But then season 2, season 3 comes along. Then Cookie, she has a lesbian experience for no reason.
They just throw
it in there. And then the other aspect of it, not even coming off of the homosexual side of it for a second, the other side of it. And Sean, I'll definitely check your post out on Facebook. I should be able to pull it up on here in a second. There was there's another situation where the idea of a man just being firm and emotionally poised, we're just seeing less and less of it. And the picture that's being painted at this point is, if you're a firm, emotional man and you kick back at a woman in any way, shape, or form, automatically that means you are a woman. You're into woman oppression, or you're what is it? Masculine toxicity, toxic masculinity. There's that. If you want to talk about that for a second, we talked about that.
All I have to say is it's not a thing. Masculinity is not toxic. Being toxic is toxic. Full stop.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it is. It's always interesting to me that people try to come up with qualities of a noun that don't need qualities.
You're just
either you are or you aren't.
Yeah, you're forcing these catchphrases together, and the Twitter hashtags, and the search engine buzzwords and all that, and it's just like, there's nothing toxic about masculinity. Masculinity is just masculinity, just like femininity is just femininity. And if you choose to exploit people and use that to be toxic, then that's not a reflection on masculinity or femininity. That's your personal character.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Sean, what post did you want me to post? Because I'm looking here through it. So just let me know which post you want me to take a look at, and we'll bring it up here. We actually bring it up here on the screen here in a second. But and the same thing with toxic femininity. Like that, neither one of those really have ever made sense to me. It's just kind of like, either you're a man or you're not. There are a lot of grown males out here, and this is going to take us into our next topic here in a second.
Well, actually, this is a good comment. There has always been a push to make the black struggle exist on the same plane as the gay struggle. The agenda is to fade the specifics. Yeah,
and that irritates me too, Jelana, and I appreciate that. We've had conversations in the past on certain topics, but that irritates me to a degree, because you can't, it's called a sexual preference. Now, whether you want to believe a person's born that way, whole nother conversation. You can think what you want. I'm not going there. I personally think it's not the case, but that's neither here nor there. That's not the direction we want to go with. Whether you believe that or not, the reality of the situation is, when I go outside, I don't, I can't turn on and off my racial makeup. I can't walk into a setting and someone say, and I flip a light switch, and all of a sudden you think I'm white. It just doesn't work that way. Like I don't. If you have a sexual, number one, if you have a sexual preference, that's supposed to be your own personal business. At what point did we make it a classy thing to do to walk around with a badge talking about what you do in the bedroom? That's an issue within itself, number one. To take it a step further, to try to say, hey, I'm going through the same struggle you are. No, you're not. No, you're not. It's not the same struggle at all. It's a completely different situation. Okay, so it is the one. Sean, we're going to go there in a second because I want to stay on topic. But Sean, matter of fact, we'll jump there real quick and then we'll jump back on topic here. He wanted me to highlight his post here. We want to bring it up so that it takes up the entire screen. If I can do that. I might not be able to do that, but let's take a look here. So he's saying here, what if I told you that Hollywood and the entire entertainment music industry was a tool used by the elite group of Satan worshipers to brainwash and manipulate the masses? What if I told you that COVID-19 was a huge distraction to keep your attention from what's really going on out here? Do some research, people. The facts are there. Dig a little. Oh, yeah. Sean, look, we're on the same page, dude. You'll never get an argument out of me with that topic because ultimately there are layers to this whole construct. And I'll do a very specific thread where we go into the top down of this entire thing. We'll go into that. I'll actually make a special episode and I'll remember to tag you in it so that I can bring you on so we can have that conversation.
They can butch up, we can't white up. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, as far as defeminization, any thoughts on that?
Child. Plenty. I just think that we kind of have joked about this and gone into in-depth conversations about this feminist movement, and that's not our hill to die on. That's not for black folks. Black men, we've always worked together historically. Yeah. We've always been on the same playing field if the women didn't have more advantages than the men. So this whole I gotta fight for my rights. Against who?
We ain't in position to oppress you. Nine times out of 10, black men are not in a position to. And let me be sensitive here.
You gotta hold power to be able to oppress somebody.
Let me be sensitive here. I'm not saying I'm not saying that there's not situations where black women are not abused by black men. That's not what I'm saying. No. So I just want to be clear because I could imagine someone could loosely take that away. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the circumstance by which the feminist movement came about, we ain't never been in that position to be able to oppress you to that degree by which that movement is represented.
Black men ain't stopping you from getting a job. Or, in fact...
Y'all are winning right now.
In fact, black men are not the dollar amount that you're trying to compare yourself to when you want your equal pay, because black men aren't even climbing in corporate to get these positions that you're competing for. So, unrelated.
And in all fairness, you probably want us to make a couple more dollars because you're going to expect us to use that money to take you out anyway.
Don't try it.
No, I'm joking. Don't attack me, ladies.
Treading on thin.
No, but yeah, it's just we adopt a lot of these what I call them is anti-family movements. They're anti-family movements. We are quick to talk about the black and white situation. You don't see a lot of these other communities jumping on board either side with these conversations. There's I don't see a whole bunch of, Chinese, Mexican, or any other outside of the general black and white jumping on these bandwagons.
And you know what? It's because we've already talked about that, just the special qualities that we have as a people. Not only are we the most stylish, we tend to be the most vocal. We tend to be the most, for lack of a better phrase, about that life. Like, we, under the circumstances that we've been under, we get a lot of things done. And we make a lot of progress. And a lot of these other movements have been riding on our backs. So they're like, if we get the black women on it, then it's going to get done. And that's what it's been. And, you know, I remember just being in this culture in my younger days. I told y'all I was militant, okay? I was militant. My dad used to call me Angela Davis because that's just how I acted. But, you know, Angela was for the people. Anyway, my mom used to tell me, jokingly all the time, she was like, you and your friends march around like soldiers in your wolf pack. And that's why don't nobody want y'all. Because y'all doing too much. Your energy is too strong. It's too strong. And and like you were talking about earlier, that women have been taught that things that are specific to women are not valuable. That's the problem that we're having here, because we have been indoctrinated with this belief that being soft and being flexible is being weak, but it's not. If you bend, you don't break. That makes you strong. Like, that's the power of femininity, and we're too busy trying to be masculine, which is not our lane. It's not our lane.
I can't find a man that can satisfy me. And I was like, yeah, because you ain't left the parking spot for a man to park. You know, and so, like, I've had conversations with my daughter. My daughter's 12 now, and I've had conversations with her, like, you know, don't, you know, as you get older, keep in mind, you know, she's girly. I'm like, don't lose that. Because as you get older, one day, your husband's going to love you for those soft and sort of attributes that you have. It doesn't make you weak. You know, you don't want to overpower to the point that you don't leave a spot for that man to sit in your life. And the reality of the situation is, men want to be needed. Women need to be wanted. Men want to feel useful and like we're doing something for you, like we're swooping in to save the day. And women want to be desired and sought after. And so when you break down those constructs, very naturally, like I'll give you a prime example. This was I had to be no more than 25 at the time, and my grandma was still alive. Rest your soul, grandma. And I had cooked dinner for everybody at my aunt's house. And I had made this hot salad that everybody seems to like to this day. And my grandma was like, boy, that was the best salad I ever had in my life. You need to make that every night for me. And I walked over like, yeah, you heard what grandma said? She said I made the best salad. And one of my female cousins, she was like, boy, she got you with the oldest trick in the book. I'm like, what you talking about? Grandma said I made the best salad. She's like, boy, that's what old school women know how to basically stroke your ego to inspire you and call you into action. That's what they do. That's how you don't want to emasculate a man thinking you're going to inspire him. You can call him to action through his ego, and grandma understands that. And that's kind of when some things click for me. I was like, oh, that's really a thing. And it is. And the same thing on the other side, y'all don't want us to be in a relationship with you, lusting after other women, talking, you know, oh, yo, she's so fine, boy. If I got her in the bed, you wouldn't want that. You want to feel like we desire you, and you're the only one that we desire. You want that feeling, you know. Jolanda commented. She said, they aren't viable until a man wants to change his gender to adopt those very qualities. Unfortunately, there's a lot of that, and I don't know where that stems from. I don't know if that's I want something that I can relate to because my father wasn't home, and so I need a man that looks like a woman because that's the only thing that I can resonate with. Or any ideas on that?
I don't know. I think a lot of these people have mommy issues and daddy issues, but that's a different conversation for another day.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a level of compensation that's taking place here, or attempting to compensate for what they didn't have, or attempting to recover from things they have experienced.
Well, let me say this. And I had this conversation with my oldest two recently. I explained to them that in this world, the natural design of things is supposed to be that a picture. You're supposed to be raised up to be able to paint a picture. I gave them an analogy. I'm like, you're supposed to be brought up by your mom and dad to be able to paint a picture. I'm like, your mom has 4 tools and 4 colors. Your dad has 4 tools and 4 colors. Your mom's colors deal with compassion and caring and emotion and consideration. And the 4 tools that she has allows her to apply those colors. That's her strength. Your father has 4 colors that deal with logic and order and reason and emotional poise, and his tools are used to apply those colors. And I explained to them that the whole idea is that you are taught to use all 8 colors and all 8 tools. What you have, and what I explained to them was, you have situations where you have adults who never gained access to half the tools and half the colors. So to them, they're painting the perfect picture because they don't know that they don't have all the tools and all the colors available. And so they ultimately go through life. A lot of them go through life and they never learn to grab the other tools and other colors. If they're blessed or lucky enough, then they do. But a lot of us don't learn until we get older. And so I explained that to them for them to understand, hey, there is a function exclusively for a male or a man to have an illustration in your life, just like there is for a woman, a female woman, your mother. They both bring unique contributions to the table to make you a whole person. And so I told them, when you get older and you're moving around, you're going to come across people who are painting with half the tools and don't realize it. And you have to be able to recognize that and know how to deal with that, because ultimately it has the ability, depending on their position in your life, to impact your life. You have to consider that. Now, Jelon said that's a whole nother show. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a 2-hour special. What we got next? We're going to go into the segment where we're talking about where are the men and where are the women. And under each, we have, what do they look like? Where do you find them? And the difference between grown males and grown men. The unique strength of men. So, where the men at? What are your thoughts?
I don't know. No, men are all over. Men are all over. I think that just the same way a lot of women feel like they get all the good girls, the so-called boring girls, they get overlooked because they're not fill in the blank, they're not exciting, they're not crazy, they're not whatever.
Dangerous.
They don't stimulate you enough. I think the men are suffering from the same, some of the same issues. Like they say, nice guys finish last, and I think that nice guys can be kind of boring. And when you're not mature enough
to know that boring is attractive.
Boring is actually just stability
and peace
and tranquility
and lacking chaos.
And that's how real life is. That people who are married for 30 and 40 and 50 years are not there because it's exciting
and dangerous. Well, I'm gonna tell you, coming up in Baltimore, and mind you, I grew up in Orlando, and so when I came into Baltimore, I came in with a completely different mentality. And Baltimore, I will say this, I'm thankful for Baltimore because it balanced me out. It taught me how to survive in sometimes very hostile environment, but it balanced me. Coming from Florida, I was in a majority white environment, and so the two really balanced me out. And one thing living in Baltimore, I remember being at Milford Mill Academy in high school. I remember thinking to myself, what's wrong with me? Why do all the girls that all the guys want, why are they skipping over me? And I got older, and people were like, well, Mario, what we were told, the lingo we had when we were in, oh, yo, you just a cornball, yo, you a cornball, you corny, and this and that. I'm like, oh, all right, well, I'll be corny, because what I'm not going to be is out here doing crazy stuff, getting killed like some of my classmates, or just getting caught up with all kind of craziness at a young age. And so I got older, and some of the young ladies that I went to high school with, on the low, in my DM years later, were like, we probably should have got with someone like you, because the dangerous ones, they're dangerous to you too. They in jail, or they beating on women, or they, and I guess I kind of get it now that I'm older. The idea is that if he's dangerous, then he can protect you. But there's no one thinking, if he's dangerous, he's probably dangerous to you too. And he can't protect you if he's putting you in danger. Like, no one thinks that through completely. And so, we are out here, and I include myself in being a man. We're out here. We're not going to let everything slide. We're not always going to just agree with everything you say. A lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us are strong-minded. Some old school, especially the black men, they're just these unshakable, emotionally poised men that no matter what a woman does, they're just kind of like, all right, woman. You have them, but you have the more outspoken ones like us that are, we're passionate, we're vocal, we're emotionally available, we're out here, And
then also, because, I can't cape too hard. A lot of black men are problematic. Not saying that black women are not.
And I know you're saying it because you probably only deal with black men. You're not saying it to kind of put them...
I think most people date within their race.
Fair enough, yeah.
I think a lot, this system has been very cruel to our men, and I think a lot are behind bars. I remember one time, my mom, she went to this, mission, what's it called? Well, ministry day sort of thing, and they went to this prison in Oklahoma because they do a yearly yearly carnival. That's what I'm gonna call it because I can't think of what it's called. But they do a yearly thing, and she went there, and she was like, my heart was torn to pieces when I was in there because there are all of these young, beautiful black men rotting away in this place. She was like, I went to it. My mom is from an all-black town. She went to an all-black high school, and she went to an HBCU. And she was like, I ain't never seen this many black men in one place in my life.
Wow.
So...
Thanks, Bill Clinton.
Right. Exactly. So there's that. And then you got your down low brothers. Then you got your, the men who like the men. Then you got your transgender men. So all of those are ruled out of society
with the enablers. I know that's right. No, it's wrong. No, that's not right.
So all of those are ruled out of society, and women, the black women at least, are left. The ones who want to date within their race are left with a small pool. Yeah. Among that pool, finding somebody who has some stability and finding somebody who has some sense, and who has worked past their trauma, who has matured beyond their mommy and daddy issues. It can be challenging. Yeah, no. It really can be challenging. And then amongst those who meet those qualifications, then you have to determine whether or not you even like those people.
Right. It can be challenging. And then on top of that, I'll add to it. There is, and fellas, I'm sorry, I'm glad to speak to it. You have what we call, we don't call it that, but you have the hunt. When we were younger, it's just this unspoken game, this hunt, this challenge. Yeah, I got with her, I got that, and it's a game, and it's something that we unfortunately do when we're younger. But when you get older, you playing them games, you be the ones that getting all the daughters, and you don't want nobody to play them games with your daughters. But God has a sense of humor. But you have the men who know. Well, there's not a lot of us out here, and if we're suave, and patient enough, we can play them games and lead you on with all these different things. And I'm not saying you're desperate, but there's a drought. If you're in a drought, then maybe the dude with poisonous water looks a little attractive. And so
Coca-Cola, you need some water.
Yep, facts. And so you have that. Now, on the flip side, did you have any other thoughts on that before I move over? Because I can go on about where the women at.
I think that's it.
All right, so where are the women at? What do they look like in behavior? Let's say that.
I didn't answer all those questions.
Oh, okay, so let's double back. We
can combine them.
Okay.
In the interest of time.
Okay, fair enough. Where are they at? What do they look like? Where do you find them? Grown females versus grown women. All right, so I would venture to say this, and I could say this across the board, men and women. Well, I'll let you speak for what you experience with men. I don't date men, so I wouldn't. I'll leave that open for you. With my experience traveling and talking to many women in different regions, I do notice that there is a regional difference on how our women function. In the Northeast, you have the more radical, a lot of times harder, ain't going to take as much, more aggressive sometimes. In the South, in the West, you have more passive, more willing to be. Let me be careful here. More willing to be on a team, indirectly. More laid back, more chill. Now, I would say that there are benefits and drawbacks to both.
But I also feel like those are regional characteristics in general. Like,
fair enough. Yeah,
people in the South
are laid back,
more laid back, less
hard.
People in the North are very.
Why are you talking to me? How can I help you? You got to hustle. Like, what's going on? Yeah, and it is. I mean, even going from when I lived in New York for a short period of time, coming from Mario, yo, Mario, you got the records? Yeah, where the records at, Mario? Come on, I see you got the keyboards and all that, and it's just like real fast pace and just high tempo. And mind you, Baltimore's a grind town. That's you gotta get it before somebody get it before you. That whole Northeast corridor has a New York state of mind. We all have it. If you live there and then you move to the South, you're like, yo, why y'all moving so slow? Y'all moving slow.
Like I'm from Texas, and then my family's from Louisiana, so I'm just as Southern as you can be.
Southern Belle, the other side.
And every time I have come back from New York, I'm always like I feel myself. I can feel myself like winding down because the energy is just so different.
It's very different. It is. And so when they say Southern men like Northern women, and I guess opposites do attract. At least that's what's said. And I think there's some value to contrast. But like in the North, you have a range of aggression. You have some that are you have some that are passive. You have some women that are passive. You have some that are more aggressive, and you have some that are covertly aggressive. They are passive long enough to get you through the door, and then they let you know that they're not with you having as much control as they led you to believe. You do have that. And it can be hard for us. It can be challenging just to kind of run down the list like you did. You have the women with daddy issues, the ones that, I need a man to tame me. No, your father should have been the one to not even tame you. It was your father's job to make sure you were balanced so you don't feel like you need to be tamed. Because what that really is I never learned correction from my daddy. And so now I want a man who cannot correct me to correct me even though I'm not going to allow that.
You want somebody to give you boundaries, which is what you do for children.
So you can break them. Because ultimately that's what happens. And so I've noticed a lot of times that you can tell very quickly if a woman is not familiar with male correction. And when I say male correction, I don't mean this in a chauvinistic sense. You could tell if a woman was ever corrected by her father or not. Because there are also women that grow up in a house with their mom and dad, and they have this princess facade. And in a lot of cases, those women are far worse than the ones who didn't have their dad around at all because they developed this princess complex. My father was there and never corrected me, so he reaffirmed the idea that I don't need to be self-accountable. Because ultimately we learn from our fathers. Really, our fathers is who we learn self-accountability from. That goes for men too. You got grown males out here that don't believe in correction, and they try to pull the sex card. You're a woman, you can't correct me. No, a woman can very much correct you if she does it in love. The question is, can you accept it? That's the question, you know? And so there's a lot that comes depending on the region and the type of woman that you're dealing with. And it's hard because there are a lot more women, but fellas, we have to get better at vetting, because that whole natural instinct in us to want to look at a girl physically and say, oh yeah, this is it right here, because she look a certain way. When them looks get old, what's going to keep her around? What's going to keep you around when them looks get tired? It's going to keep her around, because a lot of us know, you know, the crazy ones are the ones that attract us early on, but they can't keep us around. And and really, it comes back to us and being self-accountable and really being able to vet, to be able to determine, okay, mature attractions. And I guess you can chime in here with this as well, but the more mature you are, the more mature your attractions. The more vetting, the more you consider. You know, you when you're 18 and you're a black male coming from an urban city, it's she fat, she cute, she funny. Marriage material. That's it.
I mean, it's not much different for women. When you're young, he's funny, he's cute.
He make cute babies one day.
You got nice hair.
That's
all it is. But it's just like,
you get older, and
that's not stuff that's sustainable.
It's not sustainable. You get older, and then it turns into, okay, let me. You know, I told my son this. I was like, you know, Tristan, you're gonna start talking to girls. You get a little older. Make sure you pay attention to her room, the way she keeps her room, because that's the way your house is going to look. I'm like, the way her room looks is the way your house is going to look. And my son, being a smart tail like his father, it's like, Dad, we ain't got to worry about that. I'm like, what you mean? He's like, because I'm just going to get married and have kids and make them clean the house like you make us clean the house. Okay, Tristan. But, you know, but it is true. Like, you know, the way a woman keeps her house or her home is the way your home's going to look. Are you considering that? Are you considering whether or not she will actually leave space for you to be able to lead? Are you going to constantly be arguing and fighting? I told my son recently, I told him, I was like, boy, don't you ever in your life deal with a woman who does not have her own inner peace. Because a woman who has inner conflict, what she's going to actually end up doing is her inner conflict is going to end up sabotaging your ability to take care of you and her. And then she's going to blame you for not being a strong enough man to be able to bear her conflict.
Same with women dealing with men. Men tell on themselves really from the get-go. And then, you know, women be like, oh, Mother Nature power is activated. You think you're about to save him, train him, and nurture him back to life. If he came up to you, he's already told you he's a wounded bird. Take him to the vet, okay? Don't be trying to make him your little project, because you know what's going to happen. He's going to drag you down to hell right with him.
And you about to be a project right along with him.
Mm-hmm. You're going to be a nutcase is what you're going to be.
You can't marry your ministry. A lot of times we're called to help people. We're called to help people. We're not called to fall in love with the ones we're called to help. We're called to help them. And it's almost like if you have engine problems in your car, you don't. It would be crazy for someone to say, "Oh, you know, I like this car. It has engine problems. Let me get in it and race it around." Right. No, it needs to be pulled over and worked on
at the mechanic.
At the mechanic shop,
not at your house.
Facts. And so, you know, we really do have to reevaluate, question our traditions. Reevaluate our measurement of what a man and woman looks like, you know, and have some sort of standard or some sort of construct by which we determine and vet these sort of things. Let me say this, and this is moving into another topic. This is moving in another direction. I was asked to talk about this a while ago, and I'll address the men. If you want to talk to the women about this, it's time that we start addressing our own. I'll address the men in this, fellas, and you know, this goes for the Hebrew Israelite community, because I have a lot of friends who are in that community. This goes for, you know, those in GOCC. This goes for our Christian brothers and sisters. This goes across the board in the black community, fellas. You got to stop using the Bible to oppress these black women. You got to stop. It needs to stop. There is a judgment coming for you using scripture out of context. It's a judgment. You're going to be held accountable. Those going around here teaching, the Bible says you're supposed to be at home and serving the man. No, it doesn't. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that in context. It don't say nothing about you having multiple wives. And we're going to go to scripture here in a second to lay all of that to rest. We got to stop that. We have to stop with the oppression. We have to stop with the, there ain't going to be no single women in heaven, so you better marry one of us and do what we say. Stop it. It's not biblical. And you're going to be held accountable. There's a judgment coming. And for those using scripture out of context, there's a judgment coming. And so for my ladies, I want to say this. And this is important for you. We have to, it is advantageous for you when you are trying to determine whether or not you should let a man in your life. You need to start getting these men, these brothers, these fathers, these grandfathers, these uncles in your family to put a read on these men. You're not supposed to make them decisions by yourself. You're not. And women are great at a lot of things, which you're not talented at without help, is getting the read of a man to vet these men to make sure you're partnering, you're not letting your emotions impair your ability to see if he's suitable for you or not. And I'll say this on the flip, fellas. As far as suitability is concerned, you got men out here talking about, women, they're helpmeets, so they're supposed to serve us. No, they're not. Number one, before Adam even had Eve, before he laid that man down to pull Eve out of Adam, Adam was working. He had a job. He had a God-given appointment and assignment that he was doing. And it was after that the Most High said, he didn't say it's not good for you to be lonely, emotionalism. He said it's not appropriate or it's not good, appropriate for you to be alone in your appointment. But you were doing your appointment when he decided to give you a partner. So before you even think about partnership, you have to know what your appointment is. To know, to be able to determine suitable partnership for your appointment. Your appointment is not your personal whims and these personal things that you come up with where you want to give a wife a generic task to help you with your personal goals and tasks. No, you were given a God-given assignment and an appointment that your partner is supposed to be able to help you with. You can't determine that unless you know what your personal assignment is. Any thoughts?
I agree. And just for the women, don't be so anxious and don't be desperate, because that's what gets us in a lot of these situations. Women don't miss a lot. And I'm not taking away from the fact that men can be very manipulative. But if you choose to take the word of what someone says and not verify for yourself and not study for yourself, then, I'm not trying to be a victim blamer, but you have to take accountability in certain situations. And if you find yourself repeatedly in these traps, then that is on you. And you have to start loving and respecting yourself so that you don't continuously repeat these same things over and over. If they say, fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me 2 times, shame on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of it, we know these men ain't about it. We know that. But we want to fix it, or we choose to sacrifice our own mental health and our own happiness for partnership. And you don't have to do that. So just know that. That's all.
Now, what I want to do while we're on the subject, I want to establish, so we can kill a couple of these arguments. Ladies, feel free to post this or use this as, I don't want to say use it as ammo, but use it to basically vet these men out here that try to come with scriptures, trying to basically fearmonger you into a situation or corner you using scripture, trying to guilt trip you into doing something that doesn't really necessarily feel right with you. We're actually going to pull a couple scriptures out here to kill some of this noise. So, and we're going to go through 4 or 5 real quick, and we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next part of this. So first and foremost, I wanted to bring up 2 Timothy. This is one of my favorite passages because it kind of tells us the time that we're in, and it warns us of the type of people that we're going to have around us that we need to be mindful of, men and women. So 2 Timothy 3:3-7 reads, "This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers." Now listen, men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to their parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. Now I'm going to continue here in a second, but you notice here it says, "For men shall be these things." Do you know why it says that? Because men are, whatever men do, they set the tone. So if men are doing these things, naturally women are going to follow suit. If men are setting a bad example, naturally a woman is going to follow suit with them. And so look at the world around you. Men, we can't blame women for doing these things that we're seeing here because we're the ones that are setting the tone. Moving on to 5. "Having the form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away." We got some of these brothers out here, and I'm not saying all, but we have some brothers out here rocking fringes, going around in full meat treeing gear, and they're oppressing women. They're oppressing our black women. I get a lot of instant messages in my box where these women are talking about, "Mario, can you show me a scripture? Can you help me reproof? Because I'm being told that if I don't marry this man or do what he wants, that basically there's going to be a judgment that comes down on me." Or they'll go along the lines of saying that a woman can never correct a man, using scripture out of context. Having the form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. It's telling you to turn away from people who function this way. 6, "For of this sort, they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women." Now we're looking at the product here. Leading captive, it's telling you, silly women laden with sins, led away with divers lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. How many of these brothers do we know out here? They rapid fire 30 scriptures at you, but they don't have the understanding of the things that they're reading from. They just don't have, the Holy Spirit is not revealing anything. They're operating in these partial, false, out of context understandings, and they're trying to oppress women with it. We're going to continue on here. Moving on to the next one. 2 Timothy, we're going to continue on. 10. "But thou hast fully known my doctrine, manner of life, purpose, faith, long suffering, charity, patience." These are forms of love, by the way. Yea, or yeah, and all that will live godly in Christ shall suffer persecution. But evil men, going back to what you're going to be seeing around you, but evil men and seducers, which a lot of these men are doing, shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. So what it's saying here is, before we continue on, you're going to have men out here that are deceiving you women. They're deceived in themselves. In order to lie to someone else effectively, you have to first be skilled at lying to yourself. And so you have a lot of these men out here who are fully convinced in their mind that these things are true, even though they're not. And they're convincing you to follow suit. And you're walking into a trap. Continuing on. "But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and have been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them. All scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, reproof, correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, fully furnished or thoroughly furnished unto all good works." So what are we saying here? Okay. What are we saying here? Go ahead and take a break. I'm going to let Keisha take a break here. I'm going to continue on. No, you can't. So what are we saying here with this whole scenario? Scripture is supposed to be the thing that we use in order to correct men, reproof them, and for doctrine and instruction in righteousness. So women, yes, you can use Scripture. You are supposed to be able to use Scripture and hold these men accountable. You're supposed to, because it is the doctrine of Christ, the Old New Testament. Christ said Moses wrote about him in the Old Testament. So it is the Old New Testament by which you hold them accountable for correction, instruction, and reproof in righteousness. And if a man is telling you that that you cannot hold him accountable to Scripture, then he's operating within his own devices. All right. So moving on. Now this is for those. Let me preface this. This is for those who who want to try to proclaim that you can have multiple wives. The Bible said, "Be fruitful and multiply." It's a woman's job to share her man with a. We're going to kill that right now. We're going to Deuteronomy 17:14-17. When thou art come unto the land, this is talking about when the children of Israel come into the land of Israel, which the Lord thy God giveth thee, and shalt possess it, and shalt dwell therein, and shalt say, I will set a king over me, like as all the nations that are about me. Thou shalt in any wise set him king over them, whom the Lord thy God shall choose. From one amongst the brethren shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother. So this is basically saying, once you get into Israel, make sure one of your brothers within Israel is of a certain bloodline is the king. Now check this out. Pay attention, ladies. But he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt. Now, what we're saying here is, don't be doing anything to put yourself in a situation where you return to the house of bondage, because that's what Egypt means. To the end that he should multiply horses, for as much as the Lord have say unto you, you shall henceforth return no more that way. And so, in other words, the things that you did in the past, we don't expect, the Most High doesn't expect you to return to those ways, because those times have come and gone. Now that you are in the land of Israel, some things are no longer needed. We no longer need to be fruitful, multiply, and have multiple wives. Israel has now made it to the chosen land. You no longer have to do those things. How do we know that's the case? Neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away. Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. So this is being made very clear here. Israel, you're now in the land of Israel. There's no longer a need to operate that way. Now, see, they never show you that scripture. And this is in the Old Testament, so you can't argue, even for those who want to argue the New Testament has been tainted. This is in the law. Once they got to Israel, you're no longer to operate in the manner of times past. See, this is what happens when they show you certain scriptures and they cherry pick and they're not showing you everything. After they got to Israel, that was no longer a thing. Continuing on. Ephesians 5:25-33. Now this goes into the requirements. This goes into not only the requirement for women, but the requirement for men for their wives. It works both ways. The requirement was never just one side. First, it addressed the head of the home. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. So let's unpack that for a second. Did Christ require the church to wash his dishes? Did he put them in great servitude? Did he do all these oppressive things to the church? Because it just got done saying, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. So men, this is telling you, you're going to sacrifice yourself for your wives. you are to love your women the way Christ loves the head of the home. He set the example. Why do you think Israel is called the bridegroom? It's parallels. It's parallels to this. And so, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word. So in other words, through your example of applying the testament to your life, you're basically setting your wife apart and setting your family apart and cleansing them to operate the way that in godliness by your own requirement first and foremost. So men, you don't have any business out here telling women what they should be doing if you're not leading by natural example. If you're not operating a natural example, you ain't got no business telling them anything until you're operating within the godly example that you were set apart to operate under. And then we're reading on here. That he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men love their wives as their own bodies, that he might love his wife as he loved himself. So anytime that we're reading scripture and there's something that is pertinent, you're going to see it repeated. Like it's almost like either Moses or Christ or one of the disciples, they want to reiterate how important this is. And so we go back to it again. He's letting you know, hey, again, love your wives. Number one, you love them as I've loved the church. Then you love them as you love yourselves. So ladies, it is vital that you, in the very beginning, when you vet a man, you have to determine whether he loves himself or not. Because if he hates himself, he surely ain't going to love you. If he hates himself, it's not going to be possible for him to love you correctly. And if he doesn't understand the love of Christ, he's not going to be able to love you correctly. Moving on. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourished and cherished it, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Now, if you notice there, it don't say 30 women, transform and they form some super transformer with one man. No, it says one man and one woman become one flesh. That is your whole right there. Moving on. And we got two more, and we're gonna move on to the rest of the topics here. Matthew 19:4-6. And he answered and said unto them, have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? And he said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore there are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man put under. And so, again, anytime something in scripture is a vital theme, you can always ensure, you can always put your money on the fact that you're going to see it more than once. There's always a witnessing in scripture. Anytime you have a man, ladies, that takes you to one scripture in the Bible and they can only show you in one scripture, red flag. Be like, all right, well, show me another scripture that says this. Show me 2 or 3, because you're always going to see 2 or 3. And I want to point out something here in the scripture. When you read Genesis, it is made very clear that the Most High made the construct of male and female first. Then out of the construct of male and female function, made he man and woman. So it's telling us very, very, very distinctly here. In the beginning, he made male and female. And out of that came the construct of a man leaving his mother and father to cleave to his wife. And so, as you see here, you got men out here that will cherry pick to talk about the requirements of women, but ask them the requirements of men. Because if they're not focused on their requirements, that should be a red flag to you. We're going to go to one final place. Oh, no, that's it. All right, so we've covered that. I just wanted to knock that out because I've been getting a lot of email and messages from people saying that, there's a lot of men out here using scripture and using scripture out of context to substantiate this false idea that women are supposed to do whatever men say. They're there to be servants, which is not the help that was intended. Her gifts should complement his gifts if he's operating within them. And so I wanted to make that clear with scripture so that we're dividing the word evenly to understand what it actually is saying. Judith, true. Old Testament can point to the New Testament and vice versa. Absolutely. Because when you look at John 5:46 and 47, Christ is telling you, hey, if you don't believe what Moses wrote before me, surely you're not going to believe what I'm coming to do, because Moses wrote of me. So for anybody who believes the Old Testament is some mishap because you don't understand that Paul is difficult to read, and you've let a theologian convince you that Paul's writings do not coincide with Christ, you have been fooled, and you have actually fallen for a double-sided sword that is really designed to actually teach you to either, one, not believe in keeping the law, or two, not believing in Christ in the New Testament. It's a satanic win-win if you fall for that. But that we'll do a whole nother conversation on that. Getting back on topic, Keisha. This is going to be an interesting topic or header. Talking about people using scripture out of context. Narcissist and narcissism. And so I wanted to put this on here because Keisha and I have had conversations. We both have dated textbook narcissists. A lot of women and men out here have dated people with this narcissistic spirit on them. They had some childhood trauma that they never had addressed, and they're emotionally stuck at that age that they had that trauma. They're highly manipulative. They always start off 90 days, love bombing you for 90 days. They listen to everything that you say, and then they say, okay.
Record it.
They record mentally everything they say, and they just give it right back to you. Oh, you're an Eagles fan? So am I.
Me too.
Oh, me too. Oh, you like this food? So do I. It's my favorite food. Oh, we're a match made in heaven. and they love bomb you and get you hooked. Kind of like a heroin buzz. They say the first time you get high of heroin, the addiction is you're constantly chasing that first high. They get you on that love roller coaster, that dopamine binge, and then once they have you hooked, then the real person comes forward. What are your experiences?
I think you forgot one key factor: the pathological lying.
Yeah.
And they're dangerous liars because they believe the things that they
And they go through great lengths to sell you on them. I mean, they go through great lengths to sell you on them.
I have so many stories.
You just trying to pick one. Oh, I do too.
I'm trying to find a good highlight.
And fellas and ladies, if you have some stories of your experiences with narcissists, definitely chime in. We'd like to hear them.
I think you hit the key points, like things to look out for. That can be very helpful to know. Anybody who the Me Too lie, exactly. Anybody who starts off the bat telling you about these like deep traumatic childhood things that they have experienced. And when I say starts off the bat, I'm not talking about someone who is your friend and you're having a vulnerable moment with, because there is like a genuine exchange of like, a vulnerable moment. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who like cannot help but try to make you feel sorry for them. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my life, all of us have, I'm not downplaying anybody's situation, but all of us have dealt with things that have been uncomfortable or have been unfortunate or have been traumatic in some way. Yeah. All of us have done that. So people who hang their hat on the trauma that they have experienced, those are people who are more likely to have narcissistic traits. I won't say everybody who does that is a full-blown sociopath, but they might be on the spectrum. And it's just like, and they tell you like the craziest things, and it just makes like it's almost like it puts you in a position where you feel like you can't correct them or hold them accountable because you're too busy trying not to like reopen some wound that they already have. You know what I mean? So you spend a lot of time wanting to correct them about this, or like they'll do really, really, really tiny things.
The gaslighting?
Yeah. Or no, like really tiny things that like make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then you try to hold them accountable, and they're like, "You're just like my mother. Oh, yeah. She always criticized me." You know, like they just
the buffer.
Yeah.
The buffer pushback. I mean,
and they make it so uncomfortable for you to say anything to them that your focus shifts from honoring yourself and keeping your boundaries in place to trying not to make them upset. Everything is about trying not to make them upset. You know.
Oh yeah, I've dealt with that. You deal with the they're cool with you, so as long as you don't ever correct them. If you ever try to correct them, they're going to make you pay for it. If they don't make you pay for it in real time, they're going to gaslight you. They're going to say something blatantly controversial or offensive, like it's perfectly normal. And then when you respond in offense, then they're going to be like, "Oh, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting like that? You need to be seen. That's not normal behavior." And it's all about turning the tide and flipping the narrative back, flipping the spotlight. It's a form of manipulation and diversion, and they're very crafty at it. And then there's the whole you said sociopath, where they don't really. It doesn't seem like they really feel. They're like parrots that can make sounds, but they're not really talking. Like they can exhibit the idea of feeling without actually feeling the thing that they're exhibiting the idea of feeling.
Yeah, and I'm a person who, I really deeply experience emotion. I'm not like an overly emotional person.
Yeah.
I just feel things very deeply.
Yeah.
And I know for me, it sounds really bad, but when I was in a situation with a narcissist, and he would be on his we call it narking out. When they get
narc rage.
Yeah, they get like the shark eyes, and then they're just like they're about to spontaneously combust.
Yeah.
He would be like narking out, and they're really good at like crying on cue.
Oh yeah.
And all that, and because I'm a pretty emotionally even person. I just feel like I can feel things on other people. And because there was nothing actually there, like he'd be narking out and I'd be like
it's a show.
And I'd be sitting there and that would fuel him even further. How can you just sit there and watch me suffer and not feel anything? And so then
you're like, you're not feeling anything either.
and then it was I'm the one with the issue because I lack empathy. I don't know how to comfort and console people when they're going through their hard times. And it's like, because you're crying about a lie that you just made up, and I know that it's a lie. So you're right. I don't feel any type of way about it, and that's why I'm looking at you like this.
And it's an interesting. We're going to read some of the comments in a second. I just want to say this. It's an interesting conundrum that they spend all of their time trying to convince everyone else. Deep down inside, they feel empty. It seems. But there's this facade. They go above and beyond to be at the top, to attempt to be at the top. They oversell themselves. They oversell their values. They oversell their abilities. They make promises they never keep. If you remind them that they fell short on a promise, they somehow turn it into the fact that you're the enemy.
Their fault.
Yeah, everything that happens is your fault. And really, they want to be worshipped. They really want to be worshipped. If you ever are with a narc and you're in a group setting and you give someone a compliment that supersedes Giving them a compliment, oh, you're going to pay for that later.
Oh, yes. And they love to do things for recognition. So if you're going to be with one, which I strongly advise against, you're going to have to become their spokesperson, basically, in their marketing and PR team. Because everything that they do, no matter how nice and genuine and sweet it may be, it's literally just so that they can be recognized for it later.
Calculated.
And then when you do something later on, which is most likely going to be in response to some of their craziness, and you start kind of returning it in kind, then it's going to be, after all I've done for you, how could you say that to me? I gave you this, I gave you that, I took you here, I did this for you, I was there for you during these times, and this is how you treat me, this is what you do, why can't you be here for me like I've been here for you? Like, you just cussed me out, and I just told you that I'm not dealing with that, and now it's my fault because you have done so much for me. I need to be willing to take anything from you. Narc logic.
Yeah, absolutely.
They believe it too. They believe it.
Well, like that scripture says, they deceive themselves and then they deceive you through that. Reading some of these comments up here. Mario hit. Let me make sure there's another one. I wish there was a safe place for those women who are sincere in the truth to deal with righteous, balanced men. There is, now I study with the Gathering of Christ. We call ourselves pre-Constantine Christians because we function the way that the Christians did during the time of Paul and the apostleship, setting up the original Christian churches with the Jews and Gentiles in it, where they kept the Sabbath and the holy days and that sort of thing. And for the most part, they do things that I can see by the book. They're very protective of the marriage sort of process and the relationship sort of process on both ends, men and women, to hold everyone accountable. So I can say in GOCC, I've seen, at least in the Dallas body that I'm in, I've seen the order that you would expect. I can't speak for some of the other groups. I have heard word of mouth some of the craziness that goes on in some of the other ones. I'm not going to throw any names out there because I'm not about that. But no, if you are looking for a body that functions and women are protected in that regard, the Gathering of Christ Church, I have seen nothing but by the book, Bible, how they deal with men and women in that regard. Moving on, Mario hit the nail on the head. Once it gets going, they love the yo-yo game. Yes, manipulation, feels sorry for them. It's to chain you emotionally. If you pull away due to behavior, you're now uncompassionate due to that emotional feel sorry for me. Major gaslighting. Yep, relationship is a game to them, and they need constant drama and entertainment. Let me say this in that regard. They always keep. It seems like they always keep. They're always developing a fail-safe supply because you are a human emotional supply for them. And if they even think that you're pulling free, they've already started to develop another person. They're already love bombing someone else secretly in preparation for you to break free. The moment they think that you have broken free and there is no chance of them being able to hone you back in to control you, they disappear instantly. I moved 1,400 miles away to deal with someone who I found out, who I suspected was, but I was in denial about it, and I was emotionally compromised. Disappeared just like that. I moved 1,400 miles away, sold all my things. That wasn't the only reason I moved, thank God. I was really ready to come back to the South. But in moving 1,400 miles, I got down here. The whole expectation, we had these conversations, bam, disappeared instantly. So someone else said they are quick to turn on you. Oh yeah, they'll turn you instantly. There is no loyalty. There isn't loyalty. The only loyalty is to their, they're not even loyal to themselves. They're only loyal to the emotion of the moment. And whatever that demonic voice is telling them in their head in that moment, that's where that familiar spirit is taking them. a feeding frenzy is what happens to sharks. Oh, absolutely. Spot on. They need constant validation and attention. Hope you share that info, please. I have actually, if you go to Mario Think Tank on YouTube and you go to my page, I have a whole backstory on narcissists, where that spirit comes from, the backstory, what you should be prepared for. I did a whole segment on it. Check it out. YouTube, search Mario's Think Tank. It'll come right up. Plot twist. We all gaslight and we all have narcissistic ways. Right. That's what we're here. I mean, some of us we all have some tendencies, but not all of us have extremes in that regard.
That's why, if you heard earlier, I said that not everyone who does these things is a narcissist. Right. Some people. So
there's a difference.
I don't know how. If y'all believe in, the psychological, what I'm saying, the myth. Yeah. Psychologists and all that, but they basically call it the dark triad, and they put people on a spectrum from narcissism to there's narcissist, psychopath, and sociopath. Yeah, and then there's kind of like a spectrum that people can land on, in that there's people who have narcissistic traits but are not a full-blown narcissist. Yeah. So there's some people who would have, like, if you have a narcissistic trait, they might call it like a character flaw or something really simple like that you can kind of work out. And then there are people who are on the opposite end, who are like a full-blown sociopath, when you are like diagnosable personality disorder, you're a danger to society. So there is a spectrum for sure.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because in my experience dealing with them, they're attracted to certain type of people. They're attracted to people with big hearts, because what they want to do, what they work to do a lot of times with people, they want to attack your character because they want to put you on the ropes to defense to prove them wrong. And a lot of times it'll be something blatantly outlandish. You don't care about me, and you never wanted to see me happy. You're like, I do want to see you happy. I'll do whatever you say now if that makes you happy. Yeah. It's a big head game. Yeah. And
or they know that one of your like pillars that you stand on is being a loyal person. Oh, so they're attracted to that.
They'll melt that.
They will ride you from the east to the west, to the north to the south, making sure you follow them and all their foolishness. And it's like, you were supposed to be loyal. You were supposed to be the one who never left me, because everybody I love always leaves me. I thought you were going to be different. And you're like, I am different though. I am different. But just let them go. Let them go.
And what I notice is with men and women narcissists, the only major difference from my experience...
women are more violent.
You think women are more violent?
Yes. Female narcs, they're so much more violent.
Well, I know that women narcs like younger men because they know that they know that younger men are like, yeah, I got me an older woman, and they sell that point. But at the same time, they're calculated, they're very clean, because they've had a lot of practice being crazy. And so they're very calculated, they're very sneaky, and they sell their attraction a lot to keep you, they sell sex and, the attraction and the allure of a woman to kind of keep you under the veil of control and that sort of thing. And once that gets old and you're not with it, cut, instantly, instant cut. With men, unfortunately, I've talked to a lot of my female friends who will remain anonymous, and some of them have gotten beat on when guys go in narcissistic rage. There's the violence. There's the threatening to kill them, kill themselves. There's a lot of that you don't hear about. And the other thing, they will work very hard to distance you from your loved ones so that people cannot recognize that you're being manipulated. They do a lot of that. In fact, it's to the point that with some of my friends, I can almost tell when they're in a narcissistic relationship because they sort of disappear and you just don't hear from them for a while. And then I don't know whatever. Oh my God, I was in this crazy relationship and I had to let it go. And I'm like, yeah, I already knew what you were in. Because the moment something pulled you away and you just disappeared and no one heard from you, that's really a telltale sign in a lot of situations.
Well, that's another thing they try to do. Any moment that is not about them, if there are like smiling faces, celebrations, happy times, they will find a way to sabotage it.
Oh yeah,
Any possible way.
They'll even say things like, "I don't even understand why you happy all the time." It's like, cause it's healthy to be happy all the time.
One literally told me that he thought that my chipperness was fake because people are not that happy, and I'm like, he told me he thought I was fake.
Well, perception's reality to the person perceiving it. In his world,
he's fake.
Well, in his world, misery is normal.
Yeah.
So if you're happy all the time, in his world, that's not normal.
Do you think that I have to put as much effort into looking happy as you do? And I don't.
Yeah, it's not fake. And so they're very fake. They're very, the materialism thing where they have to constantly look a certain way. They, like you said one time, never trust the older woman who wears contacts.
Or man.
Or man.
Especially not a man, actually.
Looking like Simon Phoenix from Demolition Man, Wesley Snipes' character. But no, I've noticed it. The narcissists I dealt with, she, older gal, wore contacts all the time, could never be seen in public without makeup on. They're terrified of being seen in their natural state. And then when you tell them they look pretty naturally, it just doesn't register. It's just like, no, I don't believe it. It's not possible. And it's just like that. Really, like your mom would say, when you leave a narcissist, the best payback for a narcissist, when you leave them, they still have to deal with themselves. You don't have to deal with them anymore. Isolation is a mode of operation. Of what? Hashtag time? Oh, Satan. Okay, I see what you're saying. Isolation is a mode of operation. Oh, absolutely. When you not to get too deep into what's going on in the world, because this whole conversation was supposed to pull away from what we're seeing in the world. But if you look at the powers to be running this whole show right now, they're a bunch of narcissists. You can see it. They're overconfident about what they're doing, which is why a lot of things aren't going according to plan, if you know what the plan actually is. And, they're using all of these narcissistic tools out here. Deception and half-truth and fear. They use emotional triggers and all. Gaslighting is a big thing. They use gaslighting a lot. For those whose love language is like quality time and language or communication, they use brick walling. They'll stonewall you in a heartbeat. They'll cut you off. You won't hear from them for a couple of days. They'll disappear. And then the thing about a narcissist, which is interesting, they'll be enraged. Walk into the other room. Walk to the other room. Come back. Hey, girl, what's going on? You ready for me? And you're like, did she just walk into the other room and come back in like nothing just happened, or like you didn't just do something? So if you want the information in full detail on the whole narcissism conversation and what that spirit is, that Jezebelic spirit, or some call it the Leviathan spirit, I have a whole video that I did on YouTube about this, mainly because I saw people talking about the characteristics, but no one talked about the root. No one talked about how to deal with it. No one talked about how to respond. Mario Think Tank on YouTube. I'll drop in the comments when we end this video a subscription to my page so you guys can check out some of my content. I'm just reading through the comments to see if we missed anything. Our value system are not matching, and we try to force it. Yeah, I totally agree with that. We wanted to end this on a high note with this whole conversation about men and women and relationships, and we wanted to end it on kind of like the appreciations, the exclusive appreciations for what men bring to the table, what women bring to the table, and just as men and women, how we should look to heal from past toxicity, toxic people, toxic situations, in order to move forward and properly position ourselves to successfully partner with someone in the future. So we can start with appreciations for men. Your father was around, and you've had some good and bad experiences. What would you say have been the biggest contributors to your life exclusively that men have brought to you?
I think men have a different different level of stability than women have. Not in the sense, I'm not talking about paying for stuff. I mean that for the most part, men are not going to be the ones to hype you up to do crazy stuff. They're not going to be the ones who are falling apart during situations. Like, they tend to, keep it a little bit more calm, keep it a little bit more collected. Not all men, not all the time. We're not doing sweeping generalizations here. But just for the most part, men are definitely, it's like a sturdy pillar. Yeah. Men are strong in that way, and they bring a strength that is not malleable and flexible, but is very upright and very sturdy, and it's something that you can lean on. And I think that is something that is very true and characteristic and specific to men. I also think that men tend to be, even though I think it might take men a little bit longer to make decisions, I think men flip-flop a lot less in their decision making. Like, women tend to be like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. And men are very like, it may take me all year to decide what I'm going to do, but when I decide what I'm going to do, I will not be derailed, So, just very, it's like a, you know what I'm saying? Cut and dry straight.
Like the meme where you had the railroad tracks and there's just that one track?
Just to the point.
You ain't jumping tracks?
Straight to it, And I think men, I think men are less likely to be, men who know who they are less likely to be so all over the place all the time. Where I think women tend to need to be reined in a little bit. And so that's where that balance comes in.
And your father, what would you say, like, things that you learned from your father that stood out and that has balanced you out? And
my dad taught me about, as you call it, emotional poise.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I didn't get to do all that whining and crying and being unreasonable and completely irrational and all that. I would go to my dad. I tried it a few times because kids try stuff. But I would go to my dad, and he'd be like,
"Nah,
save it. If you want something, you need to speak in full sentences and communicate with me. I really am not interested in all that extra stuff." And that's why I talk too much now, because I was taught,
use your words.
Use your words.
You're using all of them.
And I wanted a lot of things, so I had to learn how to communicate effectively. But so my dad is the one who taught me, don't be doing all that hollering and crying and carrying on. Just communicate. Just say what you got to say. So I think that is one of the most valuable lessons that I've learned from him. Because to be honest, male or female, nobody wants to sit up and listen to nobody boo-hooing and wailing. I'm not talking about, during traumatic events,
right.
But you know what I'm saying.
As a normal precursor to everything.
Like pull yourself together.
Like Caillou, which is, I will never let my kids, black folk don't let your kids watch Caillou. Because you're gonna end up trying to strangle your kids. I don't want to do this. I let my daughter watch Caillou one time, and I told that little girl, I was like, "Girl, it's time to eat that." I don't want to eat that. I was like, "Caillou about to get you killed, child."
You're not gonna ever eat.
the whiny, nothing ever goes right, and just whine. Look, it just doesn't benefit anybody. So I totally get it.
Another thing, and I'm trying to make it quick. My dad always taught me to, and this is, I think this is a male thing, y'all. I really think it's a male thing because men are overconfident in their abilities, and so y'all don't really have that same level of, oh, I don't think I can do it. Like, men are like,
now here's what's going to happen.
Like, I'm doing it, period. I don't care if I blow up the whole house trying to do this. I can do it because I said I can. And that's how men are. And, to a certain extent, there needs to be a little bit of realism injected into
Johnny
that.
Bravo.
Right. But I feel like my dad never let me quit on myself before I at least gave things a try. There are many times when I was younger and growing up, and I would be like, I don't know. I don't feel like I can do it, or I can't do that. Da, da, da. And my dad is like, how you know you can't do it?
Yeah, you ain't tried it. Yeah,
exactly. And that was one thing that I feel he showed me that in many instances, but that's one of the things that really stood out. And I think now I carry that with me because people might feel like I'm a little bit unrealistic, but I just feel like I can do anything. Even if I can't, but I'm like, why not?
Yeah, and I'll add to it before we move to women, but like from my uncle and from my father, problem solving as a guy, as a man, I appreciate my father being a problem solver, just sitting down and taking time to think about things. My father's who taught me to kind of walk away from a problem, enjoy some other activity, then come back to it to find a solution. One of my uncles, he I know all of us black folk got that uncle, that grandfather, or that man who he's a man of few words. He ain't ever really emotional. He's very monotone. He just kind of like, he sits back and just listens, and he just, all right. And when he says things, everybody gets quiet because they ain't used to him talking. He don't say much. So you want to get every word you hear, you want to hear it. And they just this unshakable man. I have an uncle like that. And, just planning things out, mapping things out in a rational order, not just jumping out there on the whim emotionally or impulsively, and then coming into any situation and thinking objectively about what you're trying to achieve, and creating some sort of cushion on both sides for expectation for success and failure, and kind of having that sort of realistic understanding when you come to the table. And then just the sheer desire to want to look at things objectively. And not necessarily demonize emotion, but to say, all right, it's okay to be emotional, but pause that for a second, take that hat off, look at it through a logical lens, and then it's okay to put the hat back on occasion and look at it through emotional lens. Nothing wrong with that. And so I got that. I'm just adding to things that you didn't say that I could think of off the top of my head, but our wiring is what it is. So naturally, I think a male is going to gravitate towards manly wiring, and I'll jump to say on the woman's side of it. Yeah. Let's look at these comments before we jump to.
I like the directness in men. They will tell you if they like something or not. Our job is to be better listeners. Yeah, I like that too. I kind of wish women were more direct.
Not PC, not so PC.
Yeah,
But see, the thing is, we communicate for a different reason.
Sure.
You guys communicate to connect. We communicate to solve problems and share ideas. And a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people don't, like you in a relationship, and the woman comes home, she had a bad day. And I've made this mistake where, a woman will be venting, and I'm just sitting there trying to solve her problems. She don't want the problem solved. She just wants she wants to know that you understand how she feels. Just want to be heard in some magical way that makes her feel better, which is the craziest thing for me. Because as a man, it's like the only thing that makes me feel better is when I have solved that problem. And so when I have a problem, I want to go into my little cave and work out some simulation problem, a game, playing SimCity, playing Madden with my friends, talking to one of my friends about their problems. That pulls me away from mine so that I can come back with a clear mind and solve my problems. You guys communicate to connect, we communicate to solve problems. And so there's some mishap with that as well.
Said, are women attracted to men that don't have confidence, and then are women attracted to men that don't have drive or ambition?
Depends on if I'll let you answer that.
Attracted to men that don't have confidence. I'm not. I don't think. I guess because that would translate to them not having confidence to be able to protect you. It's just lame. Like, it's
confidence to provide, confidence to do anything.
It's lame. Like, that's I'm trying to be nice, but that's weak. Like, why aren't you confident? And I'm not, I know people have self-esteem issues. People need to sort through. That's why I say you need to sort through your stuff. Because men who don't have confidence, it's just like, okay, well, confidence is required for leadership. So you're not going to be able to do that. There's no need for you to be here. Just no need.
And I'll say on the flip, and maybe this is not the flip, but I know for me personally, when it comes to women, the Bible already says that women operate within multiplied sorrow. Like, we don't have that curse. We have a curse of basically having to provide and bearing the weight of the family and bearing the accountability on certain ends. But we don't have that multiplied sorrow. So we don't make decisions out of worry. You said earlier that we seem to be more confident. A lot of times we're more confident because we don't have that worrying curse on us to be operating within a multiplied sorrow. But a lot of times, I know for me, I can't date a woman with anxiety. And when I say by anxiety, extreme worry. Like, and I think that's a whole other conversation we can go in at a later point, where there's some spiritual implications behind that with unforgiveness and some other things. And I've talked about this before, but I personally don't have the tolerance to deal with someone on the flip that it's one thing not to have confidence. It's another thing to be constantly in chaos and worry and just complete meltdown at the turn of a moment. I personally can't deal with that. You said confidence would be a red flag for you.
And I think that's the same for me. In terms of men, like, pull yourself together. I don't like. I'm a woman, and I don't like all that. Yeah. So for a man, it's intolerable to me, to be very honest. Yeah, because at that point, it's like, where's the emotional poise to pull the team up? Right. In that situation. What else is said here? Men that don't have drive or ambition, I wouldn't know practice. Some women are. Some women don't care. Some women have enough drive and ambition for themselves. They don't need a man who does all that. They just want somebody to make them feel good, and that's just the truth of the matter. Well,
I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not attracted to friends that function that way as a man. None of my friends, and I was just talking to one of my homeboys from Baltimore earlier today, and I was like, you know what, man, the guys we hung out with at Milford, all the guys I hung out with are doers to this day. All of us were doers. All of us had ambition. I couldn't imagine myself hanging with someone who is okay with playing video games while their girl goes to work and then comes home and they still playing video games. Babe, did you go by the store and get me some ice cream while you out? Like, I'm not attracted. Like, was never in a circle with guys that function that way. I just can't get with that. It's just, I just can't. So I can relate from that perspective. Yeah. Of friendship. As far as mothers, women, you guys, to this day, I'm learning about women. I'm 39 years old, 39 years young. I've been intrigued with women ever since I was like 11, 12 years old. I had my little first female friend when I was 12, and we used to just talk on the phone for hours, and I was just picking her brain. And, because I'm a simple creature by comparison, because men are simple compared to you guys. Yeah. There's so much complexity to you that we have to unpack. And for men, it takes a lot more energy to really operate on that level that you guys do naturally. And so For me, I would say that women are the great expanders. They can take something that a man has founded, something that a man has built. They can take that invention and expand it beyond his ability. He can build it, but he's going to hit a capping point. And she can come into that situation and be like, you know what? We can take that and expand it this way, to a certain degree. They're detail oriented. My mother was instrumental in giving me my compassion, my heart for people, my the empathy that I got from my mother. And you guys have a certain, I know a lot of people say because women are emotional, that makes them emotionally weak, but I think it's the opposite. I think because you guys are familiar with that pool, the emotional pool, it actually makes you more emotionally resilient in ways that men wouldn't normally be able to attribute. Because a lot of times a lot of us are being raised not to be emotionally available. We don't even know how to place emotion or handle it. Women are very open in that regard. You guys communicate through that vehicle. So you're not unfamiliar with it. I had an uncle tell me when I was younger, he said, boy, don't you ever get in an emotional fight with the woman. You will lose every time. Number one, you don't even belong in that pool with them. That is their home. They have a tactical advantage, and you will never win in an emotional battle with a woman. You will never, and it's true. That's your environment. That's your pool. That's your strong point. And so I think you guys being emotional is actually what allows you to have a certain level of dexterity or just resilience in that regard. What else? What did I learn from my mother? I learned to be open with my feelings. I learned that there's a difference between being overly emotional and emotionally available, and what that balance is. I learned how to communicate with women, and what it means to them for me to listen and actually be interested in what they're talking about. There's like the amount of women that I talk to that tell me that men just don't know how to have engaging conversations, to be fully engaged or immersed in the conversation that you're having with them. That's not a big thing.
Well, there's a lot of men who don't actually like women. And I don't mean that they will like men. I mean that there's a lot of men who have been scarred by their experiences, mostly their childhoods, and they do not care for women. They want to reproduce with women. They think women look good. They think that women are excellent utilities for them. But as far as actually liking and enjoying women as people, they don't.
And I consider the same thing. Like on the flip side, there are women out here who come from angry mom families where generationally they're handing down this mentality: a man is only good to bear a child, and then you kick them to the curb. And that's the thing. Where I come from, that I've seen that a lot. Or you have women out there who have the mindset because they've never seen functional men. Men aren't good for anything. So they're auxiliary. They're auxiliary parents. They're auxiliary in my life, and they're dispensable. They're there when I need them, and they're like platonic. If I need you, I'll call you. If not, go sit in the corner somewhere. And it's very sad because, going back to what we said earlier, you have half the tools and half the colors, and you don't even realize it. So what about you, moms, women? I know you could probably...
Let me count the ways.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
No, I think women are organizers. Mm-hmm. I think women, like you already said, are expanders, nurturers.
Come into a home. They can come into an empty place with full walls, and turn that sucker into a house.
It's like we just know how to multiply stuff. That's why we grow the children, because we take the raw materials and we turn it into something great. That's what we do, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that, kind of to tie it all together, I just feel like there's such that balancing act, because I used to say, like, I used to tell my male friends, because they would talk about like, covering women and stuff like that, and I would try to teach them, like, it's not from a position of control. it's from a position of protection. Like you are, because a woman is busy with her hands. A woman is a busybody for the most part. She's doing this, she's doing that, she's going here, she's going there, and you are like the regulatory system that surrounds her,
like the eyes and the head,
that makes sure that no harm comes to her by what she's doing, and you know what I'm saying? Because she's going to be like, because she's busy, she's going to be expanding things, and if you're covering her, then you expand as she expands. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's where that balance comes in.
Yeah, no, yeah, and I agree. It's reciprocal. I talk to a lot of foreigners because I'm always interested in the non-Westernized, non-European school of thought pursuant to like relationships, marriages, teamwork. And I had this Indian woman in my car, and I'll never forget it. And we just got to talk about relationships and marriages. And she's married. Her husband married her. It was an arranged marriage. She told me in her culture, she had her say so. Her mom and dad picked out a couple, you know, that they knew that like matched her personality. And she had a say so in it. And she said, you know, we respect our parents being able to help us make that decision because we are taught that love is something you learn once you partner. And so it's a learning process. And she was saying that, you know, she's like, we find it odd. We come to America and, you know, she's like, we find it odd that the women are working. Why are the women working? Who's taking care of the kids? Who's developing the kids? Who's taking care of the home? That's a job not accounted for. Why do you do that? Why do you abandon your kids? And they're saying it from the outside looking in. So just take it with a grain of salt. But she's like, why are you abandoning your kids and letting strangers raise them and strangers teach them? And why do you abandon your elderly and put them in homes? So they were like, that's the weirdest thing to us. They were like, I'm best suited to be able to take care of my kids. It's like if you and they say she was saying if you respect the seat of developing a child, it is a full-time job. And so, you know, you can say multitasking. You know, you can say, hey, I work a job and take care of my child. But it'd be a better situation to have someone that can be hyper-focused on that sort of thing. You know, and so I totally get it. It is really just the westernized society that really has us in a place now, either by circumstance or by belief or by tradition or by all of the above, to think that, you know, oh, okay.
That it's like a secondary role that's not as important.
Or I'm going to complain that the teacher is not teaching my child the way that I teach. Well, teach your child then. You know, and God willing, if God can bless you with that opportunity, then do it. Like even when I was a kid, I wasn't homeschooled, but I was schooled at home. I wasn't homeschooled, but I was schooled at home. It wasn't just the teacher's job at school, you know, and so that's pivotal. And then, you know, the other thing is this, grandparents. Men and women is one thing. Fathers and mothers is another thing. But fathering and mothering doesn't stop with one generation. You don't send your kids on, and that's it. I can tell you right now, with my children, grandparents have been pivotal, with all my kids. Because number one, yes, to a certain degree, they haven't been children as recently as we have to know what our kids can deal with, so we can relate to our kids in that regard. But they have the wisdom and the time on this planet that we haven't, that they can pour into them the things that we cannot.
And I think also grandparents just have a lot more patience because they're not in the like acquisition phase of life. They're not like striving.
They ain't got the debts and all that. They got time on their hands.
Yeah.
They're not moving like, as fast.
I did my thing. I'm chilling. Yeah. I got time.
Yep. I just want to sit back and do whatever I do and be able to give my grandkids back when I want to and that sort of thing. And so they have shifted gears by that point and they're in a different place. But you know, all in all, with this conversation, you know, life is about learning. You know, we're gonna learn. You're gonna. They say you grow until you die. You know, if you're not growing, you're dying. You know, and that's a daily task. That's a monthly, yearly, decade. You're gonna be doing it your whole life. You learn from your kids. Your kids learn from you. You learn from the people around you. You learn from your mistakes. You learn from others' mistakes. It's just the circumstance that we're in this situation. And you know, it's important that, you know, I tell my kids all the time, I don't have a problem with you making mistakes. You're going to make your mistakes. I have a problem with you not learning from your mistakes. You know, this situation is 1% what you're handed and 99% what you do. It's 99% what you do with it. And you know, we do these, so we have these sort of conversations because they're good dialogues, they're healthy dialogues. They're dialogues that are rooted in getting people to think constructively, objectively, and critically for themselves, and just to kind of evaluate, you know, is there a better way that I can think? Is there a better way that I can do this? Is there a better way that I can approach different facets of life? If I'm making the same mistakes over and over again, what is it about myself that I don't see that would create a different situation? You know, and so it is definitely important that, you know, we are healing from our mistakes and we are partnering with healed people, because they say hurt people, but what they don't say, which is also true, is hurt people are attracted to hurt people. You know, and so if you find yourself attracted to hurt people over and over again, then it might be time that you start to evaluate whether or not you are healed, so that you can attract someone like yourself. Any thoughts? Any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. Yes, healing is key. Also, listening is key. Being compassionate. We talked about that. You know, we do a lot of, you know, they don't do this, they don't do that, da, da, da. And that's fine and dandy. But we also need to be a listening ear for people. I'm not saying put yourself in vulnerable positions and be taken advantage of and all that kind of stuff. You got to first love yourself, yeah, so that you can properly honor and protect yourself while you deal with other people, and you're not feeding off of them to give you whatever it is that you're missing. And then when you do that, you can be open with boundaries. You can be vulnerable with boundaries. You can listen with boundaries. You can judge and say, you know what, you're a great person, but this is not great for me. Godspeed. You can do those types of things, and I just think that's really, I think it's really important.
Yeah. Yep. So, any thoughts, guys, before we get out of here? This has been a pretty lengthy.
It's been long.
It felt like an Elder Ricard segment. He'd be like, we're only going to be 15 minutes. It'd be like 3 hours. He's like, we got a short lesson tonight. I'm not going to take the full time. Yes, you are, Ricard. It's 3 hours and 11 minutes. Full time. Any thoughts or concerns before we get out here? All right, listen. While you guys are typing, if you're typing, check me out on YouTube. I have a full page, a full blog, talking about many different topics. I have a segment talking about the beginning of creation, where we go into all of the Bible records, not just Genesis before the flood, but also Jasher, Jubilees, Enoch, Book of Adam and Eve, and we put together a full picture of creation from the beginning. We have many different topics that I post online, just my thoughts in the moment with the things that are going on around us in the world, what the Bible says pursuant to prophecy about these things. Feel free to leave your comments, participate. Please subscribe. I will leave a link in the comments, and I hope everyone's doing well in this time. Start buying your seeds and plant some food. Please plant some food, because you don't want to make the mistake of assuming we know when all this is going to be over. But I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone got something from this. I truly enjoy doing these things. And I think you did a good job.
Thanks.
She was a little, I don't know if I'm going to. I'm like, yeah, you'll be fine.
I'm not the camera person.
You did fine. So
that's fine.
Yep. So, guys, until next time, we appreciate you listening in, and we'll catch you on the next time. Deuces.